when you hire someone to fulfill that role, you are dangerous enough. And what I mean by that is you know just enough to know if they are BSing you or not.
Oh, for sure. They can't sit you a kop in.
No.
Nah, because you know.
You know, you're
You
like,
get it,
hey,
yeah.
listen, man, that function takes 2 minutes. You've been spending 20. What's going on?
Welcome to Make Art, the podcast that helps creatives get creative. Our community of entrepreneurs will show you how to turn your passion into a sustainable income-generating endeavor. Broadcasting from Cape Town, South Africa, here's your host, Jerome Rex.
Welcome everybody to the Make Art podcast. This is all about inspiring and motivating you to, guess what? Make art and get creative. We are definitely not here to tell you that only people who are doing this full time are doing it properly. We are also not here to hate on people who are working a real job. In other words, a regular 9 to 5. There's no judgment here. There's no questions about where and how and whatever you're doing. But I'm hoping that you will hear throughout these podcasts some gems and some little inspirational moments that are going to motivate you to get busy and get creative in your chosen form of expression. So tonight, I have with me the amazing, the talented, the gifted Jarrod Morkel. And of course, tonight we're talking about graphic design. He is a graphic designer, I would say, is his primary trade, or it's the business that he is currently running, a graphic design solution that he offers. And really the question for me is, when do you need an expert and how will you know? So of course, as independent artists, myself, I'm an independent musician among other things, and you tend to have to do a lot of things yourself. So it's thanks to my music career that I understand Photoshop and that I understand basic design elements, because I steal from other people and I look at other posters and ask myself what works and what doesn't work. And so I've learned how to do basic design and so forth. But of course, it reaches a point where you feel that you need professional help and you need to step your game up and elevate. So you either need to outsource because you want a better quality product than what you are capable of delivering yourself, or you just want to free up some time. You want to outsource some work so that you don't sit hours and hours and hours. Because I know, especially in the beginning, it would take me hours to design a flyer or some kind of graphic that I know for a fact would take an expert 20 minutes, half an hour to do. So perhaps you want to free up time. And even that as a creative can be really, really daunting because you need to let go. And as independent artists, you know, we are notorious control freaks because you come up and grow and develop learning to do everything yourself. And now all of a sudden you aren't doing everything yourself anymore. So Jarrod, hello and welcome with us. It's lekker to have you here.
Thanks for having me, Jerome. It's always amazing being here. It's always fantastic sharing concepts and ideas with you and your listeners. And for me, this is really quite a touchy talking point because as creatives, it's precious. Like what we do is precious. The way we view the world is unique, and the way we articulate that view is unique. And so when we start talking about what is rebranding and when to get the expert involved and when to let go of the process, it's no longer just a question of, yeah, this is me just handing off a book to somebody and saying, go drop it off there. No, we're actually reimagining, reinventing someone's baby, you know. And so it needs to be treated with a certain level of respect, almost a certain level of reverence, if you want, you know. Because for that person, it is heilig. Dis aan my ding, you know. So there's a lot of that. And so I'm really grateful to be on the platform and to engage on a topic like this.
Lekker, man. For sure. Everything you've said there is very valid, and we are definitely going to get into that. I thought to start out with, I would just love for the audience to get to know a little bit more about you. And I'm going to start off by asking you, Jarrod, when people say, let's say you're at a party and people ask you, what do you do? How do you answer that question? I've been wondering that today because you do so many things. Like if somebody asks you, what do you do?
That's a good question. I normally respond by what do you want? So it's really dependent on the scenario. For me, I think I like to think of myself as a creative. Not in the classical sense. I don't necessarily paint, although I did. I don't necessarily draw, although I did. I don't sing. I do not play the piano. And I'm sure many people are like, yeah, but what do you actually do? And so for me, the creative process is one that is transformative. And so I'm really looking to transform, not necessarily myself, but the perceptions that other people have of themselves. And so during that process, whatever vehicle is the most appropriate, that's the vehicle I use. Whether it's interior design or web design or graphic design, whatever is the most appropriate vehicle, that's the one I'll use. And I'm not precious about it. Because ultimately, it's not about me. It's about expressing the mandate, the dreams and the desires, the hopes, the aspirations of the people that I serve. And that's what I really view it as. I view it as an ability to serve, as an ability to articulate that which cannot be articulated through normal means. You can't always put words to a picture. You look at the picture and you remember the moment, and sometimes it's so overwhelming that the visuals speak for themselves. And that's what I try to achieve every single time, whether it's with an interior identity or with a web identity or with something as rudimentary as a poster. So for me, it's really about that.
Yo, that is a mouthful. Chew on that, guys. Chew on that. That's intense. So you were mentioning about interior design. You were talking a little bit about web design. Could we rewind a little bit and perhaps just explore how your design journey started? I understand you started out kind of in interior design, which also you were at great pains to point out is not the same as interior decorating.
100%. So initially, like many creatives, there was let's call it the dark age, where I flat out denied my creativity. I rebuked it. I didn't want to be a creative, which led to about 2 years of pain and suffering. And I do not recommend it for anybody. After which I then studied interior design, so I'm a classically trained interior designer. And the biggest difference, or the biggest differentiator between interior design and interior decorating is that decorating really deals with a lot of the superficial things, where design deals with more structural elements. There's a lot more maths in the one discipline as opposed to the other, which is a bit intimidating for some people. But for the most part, what it does is it gives you flexibility. And when I say flexibility, it doesn't just allow you to reimagine a space, but it allows you to reimagine someone's life. And that's the real gem. So for me, I really gravitated towards that because I felt like if I could impact and influence someone inside their home, which is normally sacred and private and kept quite close to the chest, then I could reach them anyway. And so that's why I gravitated towards that. And then as time went on, clients would ask me, listen, you did this thing at my house and it was great. Don't you want to do my office? And then they'd say, like, don't you want to do the logo for my business? And, oh yeah, we also have this website thing. And don't you want to get involved in that? And then those clients become legacy clients. And it's fantastic. And some of those clients I've got long relationships with, 12, 15 years, which is amazing. Other clients become legacy clients in a much shorter period of time, which is also great. It's also fantastic. And so those are the clients that I'm really after. I'm not looking to design a business card and run away. I'm really looking to build a relationship. And in so doing, when we build relationships, as time goes on, the depths of that relationship gets more, it gets deeper, gets more intense. But it also leaves room for more honesty and more open appraisal, which is exactly what you need. I feel like the best client relationships I have is with people who know how to be honest without the ego, honesty with a really sensitive, really pure intention. I find like those are the best relationships for me.
Yeah, so definitely honesty, authenticity, those are kind of the cornerstones of how you
Absolutely.
work
Absolutely.
and how you prefer to do business.
Yes, for
right?
sure.
Yeah. So you, a few years ago, you founded the Cognitive Design Solution. You're an entrepreneur. You used to work for a boss. You now work for yourself. You call the shots. You are, as they say, the dik ding, the main peanut in the packet. And the Cognitive Design Solution has also done a bunch of work for me. Done some CD layouts for me and campaigns and so forth. What I'm curious about is how did that transition work from working for a boss to the next day you're working for yourself? Like, did you just wake up one morning and decide, and what do you need, and how does one go about it?
So I'd say I still feel like I'm helishly unprepared for all of that. It's massively daunting. To start Cognitive, I've always had it in the back of my mind. I've always wanted to do something independently. The plan was never to work for a boss forever. I always wanted to be part of something that was great and memorable and deliver a certain level of service to people. Unfortunately, because of the economic circumstances that we find ourselves in as a country, I went through a couple of retrenchment processes at various places. And after the last round of retrenchment, there really wasn't any other option. It was kind of the forced choice, which was both great and daunting at the same time. It really meant that I needed to put things in place, to do the things that I wanted to do, and make the connections that I needed to make. And so one of those legacy clients that I was mentioning earlier, even before Cognitive was founded, I was already doing business with them for at least 10 years. And so it was just natural for me to approach them and say, like, listen, let's formalize this thing. I've started this business. I'm already doing work for you on a month-to-month basis, and you guys pay me. Let's just call it a retainer, and you pay me every month, and I'll do the stuff that I'm normally doing for you. And they agreed. And so immediately, even before the company was registered, there was a 2-year retainer in place, which was fantastic. And that really alleviated a lot of the pressure initially. But then it also gave us a foothold to be like, hey, we have a retainer with these guys. Why don't you guys just also come on board? So it gave us a lot of leverage both ways. And so much so that we could then go to people like, okay, I know you're considering the retainer. So let's start with something smaller, and then we'd negotiate. And so that's really how all of that came into being in a nutshell. There's still a lot of refinement. There's still a lot of learning. There's still a lot of change and dynamicism within the company. It's not like we've made it. I don't think we'll ever be at a place where we make it, because our measure of success keeps changing. It keeps evolving as the company grows and evolves and tackles new and different challenges. How we measure certain deliverables also change. And so for me, this concept of I've made it is really just a way to say I tick something off the bucket list, and for me it's not really about that. I'm not looking for a shot of dopamine in my head and just be like, yeah, another thing off the bucket list, yeah, another thing off the bucket list. For me, it's really about impacting change in a way that is exciting and unexpected, and really sensitive to the desires and the needs of the clients. And that's where I feel like a lot of creators kind of miss the mark. They make it all about them and their ego, when in actual fact it's not. It's really about what your client wants to achieve. So much so that invariably we find that creatives, and I use the term quite loosely here, they subconsciously choose to live in a world where they are against their client. It's me versus my client. And that's not the case. I firmly believe that it's you alongside your client, and you walk this journey together. Instead of being opposing forces, you walk side by side, and collectively you can achieve more.
Sure, that's an interesting perspective. Could you explain that in a little bit more detail, that mentality of me against my client?
Absolutely. So as you mentioned earlier, For some people, the creative process is quite a personal one. And so what happens is whenever they're faced with any form of critique, they feel like it's a personal attack. When in actual fact, it's not. It's just not meeting the criteria that was set about initially. And this is really where I feel like you can separate the people who know what they're doing against the people who say they know what they're doing. And for me, what that's about is this. People who really understand what it means to be creative understands that creativity manifests itself differently for everybody. What you perceive to be beautiful is different to what I perceive to be beautiful. And that's okay. In the diversity, there is beauty. It doesn't mean that one is more correct than the other. It just means it's different. Because your life experience is different. Therefore, your palette is different. And so what happens is, as a creative, sometimes we subject other people to our taste profile. And that's where that friction comes in. That's when the machine isn't oiled well enough, or there isn't administrative processes in place in the beginning to protect both you and the client from those moments. And those administrative processes are vital. They're absolutely vital. Things like a contract and having an NDA in place and making sure that payment arrangements are set up early and they're transparent and everybody knows what's up. Those things are vital, because when things get a little bit heated, you just defer back to that original agreement and everybody is like, oh, yeah, that is what we said, you know. And so invariably I get quite heated when I hear people entering into agreements on the handshake, because some contracts last a year, some contracts last a couple of days. And so if it's a couple of days, it's easy to remember what we said. But if it lasts a year, you know, you view things in a certain perspective that is not always accurate. So for me, the concept of me versus the client is really one that speaks to the egotistical nature, the self-indulgent nature of creativity, as opposed to the self-serving and community and how can I give of myself. So there is a paradigm shift, and it needs to happen within the creative organization or within the group of creatives. And unfortunately, because a lot of creativity is self-serving and self-indulgent, we write music to help us process our feelings, not necessarily the feelings of the world, as a baseline example. And so because of that, it is a personal thing. And when it's something that close to home, we often feel violated when people say, yeah, I don't like that. You know, we feel offended, even though it's not the original intention. They just don't particularly enjoy that in that moment.
Yeah, for sure. And I really enjoy what you mentioned there about contracts and agreements and so forth. There's this hesitation, I think, among creative people to contractualize and to formalize arrangements. But really, it's not just for your protection as the vendor, it's for the client's protection as well.
Absolutely.
And, you know, the two of us are going to walk this path together. Let us agree how we're going to walk that path together. Yeah. And when you think about it from that perspective, then I think it makes things a lot clearer, and it makes things also a lot less personal.
Yeah.
You know, when things go wrong. Like, we both work, I think, in spaces, we operate in spheres where you have to pitch ideas.
Yeah.
And on the basis of this pitch, you're going to be successful or you're not going to be successful. And I really would advise anybody who is operating in that space to very quickly, you know, start disassociating yourself from that feedback. You know, this feedback is not about you. It just means that your client was looking for something specific. It doesn't even mean that your work is bad.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, for sure. Like, we're thinking of something in particular, and what you gave us, even though it may be good, it's not this thing that we're looking for.
Yeah.
And when one can free yourself from that, I think it really it saves you a lot of hurt.
Yeah.
And also it helps you grow up, man.
For sure.
Operate in this world, you know, in this
sure.
other reality. But thank you very much for your story and your background. I really hope that, certainly for me, it's encouraging, you know, for people who are out there thinking, one day I don't want to be working for a boss forever. I want to eventually be doing something, to hear somebody who had those same thoughts and who is now doing something for themselves. That's really, really encouraging. So, Jarrod, here I am. I am a jack of all trades. So let's say I'm a dancer, I am a poet, I'm some kind of performing artist. Let me look for some other examples that are not necessarily performing artists. I'm in video production.
Yeah.
I create videos for corporates, or I create videos for myself, and I'm trying to advance by the mechanisms that mainstream consciousness has told us are the mechanisms, right? So you need to be active on social media,
Yeah.
you need to be operating there, and you need to be gigging on a regular basis, or signing contracts on a regular basis. I'm doing all these things myself. Over time, I've learned how to do my own grading of my videos. I've learned how to make my own little flyers. There's this awesome website called Canva that helps me design flyers. So my flyers are popping and everything is lit. At what point do I decide, listen, I want to get a professional. I want to get a professional graphic designer to design my next flyer for my event. I'm not going to do it myself.
So that's a very good question. One thing that I will recommend here is just take stock of where you are, as not only as a business, because if you're doing all of those things, you're really running an enterprise. You're no longer just like a solo person. You're actually running an enterprise, and every time you move from one creative sphere to the next, you're essentially putting on a different hat, a different skill set. So just take stock of where you are, both in your enterprise and in your personal space. Because here's the thing that people don't get. There's a trade-off. If you're spending 6-7 hours, whatever the case is, maybe it's 2 hours a day. If you're spending 2 hours a day every single week, that's fundamentally 14 hours. What are you trading off? Are you trading off time with your family or your friends or other loved ones? Are you trading off the ability to go out and pitch more ideas to get in more revenue? Are you trading off a possibility to develop something that could automate a different process in your business that could then generate more revenue? So what is the trade-off? And if the trade-off is high, then it's definitely time to consider calling in someone else to handle that for you. Another way to look at it is this. What do you enjoy doing? Do you like running around and doing all of these things that you kind of had to learn because society said you had to learn it? Not necessarily something that you're exceptionally passionate about. You just had to do it to be relevant. If you don't enjoy doing that stuff and you have a bit of capital, go speak to an expert, because then you can go and do the stuff that you enjoy doing, right? So those are the two areas where those are very plain. They're very easy to identify. Later on, it becomes, as things become more complex and there's more moving parts, it becomes a little bit more difficult to identify when it's time to call in an expert. So if, for example, you are running an organization and there's more than one person involved, it really comes about selecting the right tool for the right job. And again, it comes back to time management and time optimization. So invariably, to put it quite plainly, so that everyone can understand, you won't necessarily use a tiler to come and do the cooking in your house, because that's not their primary skill set. However, when we run organizations, that's exactly what we do. We get the tilers to come and do carpentry work. We get the tilers to come and do cooking work. And then it takes them an exceedingly long period of time to get the same result. And so then ask yourself, am I allocating this resource correctly? Is this the best I can get out of this resource? Because maybe that's not that person's skill set. If you have an organization of 5 people, 10 people, whatever, you really want to assess each member's skill sets. Find out what they really like doing. Find out the things that make them tick, and get them motivated and focused on those things. And the output will be substantially more than if you had to put them on a job that they kind of hate. They don't really enjoy it. It's kind of the bane of their existence. And what you'll find is that when you put the right tool in the right place, not only does the output become more, but the morale of the team goes up. And when the morale of the team goes up, the team performs better. So fundamentally what you're doing is you're not only allowing someone to express themselves in their most natural state, but you're also increasing their output. And by default, you're increasing the team's output. So initially what started out as, okay, we're just going to double this guy's output because he's part of a team. If the team's output doubles, you fundamentally quadrupled that individual's output, which is a massive win. From a business perspective, that's a massive win. And so those are the type of trade-offs I would really consider when deciding if I'm going to outsource this or hire an expert. Because fundamentally, the money that you pay is just the price. What you're really looking for is the value. And that's where the gold lies. If you know that paying this person is less valuable, the money is less valuable than the time that you're saving, then it's time to call the expert.
Boom. There you go, right there. That is a really, really eloquent description. Thank you so much for that. I like also that you acknowledge that in the beginning there isn't money. That like hopefully the creatives who are listening to this, the intention is to run the creative exploits as a business, even if it's not your primary source of income. But, you should be getting some kind of income for the effort and the time and the hours that you put in. In the beginning, there isn't money, and so you do these things because you can't outsource.
Absolutely.
But then later on, there are trade-offs that you can make, and there are sums that you can make to decide whether you're going to or not going to. I'm getting the sense that you are definitely not against people doing things for themselves.
No, absolutely not. There's this misconception, amongst the purists, as in any industry, there's always the purists, and bless them, they're valuable, they're precious people. But sometimes the point of having a workflow is to make the workflow. It's not necessarily to use the same tools as everyone else. Yes, there are industry standards, for sure. And the industry standards are there because it allows for greater collaboration, for ease of transition, just for overall better management. It makes the transmitting of files and things like that a lot less painless. However, if you were a solo entrepreneur, your fundamental job is to get the maximum output from the same 24 hours that everyone else has. So if you are using Canva or you are using Paint or PowerPoint, as long as the net result is of an acceptable standard and acceptable quality and it meets that industry standard, who am I to critique it? Because I don't run your organization. You do what works for you. And so I'm definitely not against that. I have done a lot of things that is well outside my wheelhouse. Not because I wanted to, but merely because it was necessity. And so therefore, I endorse it. Because then when you hire someone to fulfill that role, you are dangerous enough. And what I mean by that is you know just enough to know if they are BSing you or not.
Oh, for sure. They can't sit you a kop in.
No.
Nah, because you know.
You're like,
it.
hey, listen, man, that function takes 2 minutes. You've been spending 20. What's going on? So you just want to be dangerous enough. And by diversifying aspects of your portfolio, you become articulated and acquainted with some of those nuances, and that's fantastic because then when you start diversifying your staff or diversifying your client pool, you already have a understanding or some kind of insight into how long a project should take or shouldn't take, which gives you better range on how to quote, when to quote, what to quote on, and so forth. So yeah, you do what you have to do, man. Dollar what you must.
Yeah. No, thank you for mentioning that, Jarrod. I asked the question because I want to make clear that this is not an advertisement for the cognitive design solution.
No.
It's purely a conversation about there are experts out there who do things either that you can't do or who do things better than you can do them. and really kind of identifying when it's a win, to outsource some items. Listen, we are quite some way into this conversation. I do want to get into just a little bit of plug time and talk about what else you're busy with. The cognitive design solution. What are you guys up to? What are you busy with now?
We are busy with a couple of stuff, and if I may, I just wanna talk about an element of what qualifies an expert. So we know when to choose an expert, but why should we choose that expert? And for me, this is a really important conversation. I've been on both sides of this conversation. For me, the some of the qualifying factors is obviously look at the person's portfolio, do the normal steps. But a big qualifying factor is you actually need to assess whether or not they have the same appetite as you. Do they have the same moral compass? Do they have the same core values? Because what happens then is, if those things are taken care of, there's no bickering about the petty stuff. We said we're gonna pay on the 10th, and it's the 11th. What's going on? That's normal follow-up talk. The petty stuff that I'm talking about is, oh, I thought this is gonna be green, but I see it's lime green. What's going on? It's the first draft. We're experimenting with a couple of things, So it negates all of that. You automatically come from a similar train of thought, from a similar approach to the world. I'm not saying hire people that look and sound like you. That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying hire people that think the way you think, that strive for the same ideals and values as what you do, because the frame of reference is then the same. The destination is then the same. You also want to get involved with people that are diagnosing the actual issues and not dealing with symptoms. And what I mean by that is, invariably as a visual creative, I've often found that there are people in my circle, my fellow colleagues, who are very quick to say, I see the symptom, I have a solution, and it's not the actual problem, And there's a process that those more proficient in a specific discipline will identify and be like, actually, I hear that being a symptom, but for me it sounds like that this is the actual problem. Those are the people you really want to hold close to your chest, because they are the ones that are not going to run away. They're there for the long haul. So that's my second point. The third point is, it's really about value. And I cannot stress this enough. It's really about value. Price is just a measure of value from one person's perspective. That's all price is. It's a measure of value from one person's perspective. But value is the real game. Oftentimes, when we have the value conversation, people are apprehensive. Because when they say value, they think the price increases, but that's not always the case. You want to partner up with people that offer you value for money, yes, but they offer you value in your enterprise. They offer you value in the way that they help manage your staff if they need to, or help implement a certain campaign, or help implement a certain strategy. It's not just about the price point. It's about the additional value that's added. And so those three aspects for me is really critical when choosing an expert. If you're not looking out for those things, the chances of you getting blindsided is very real. And so I feel like, just like the contract is there to protect both sides of the party, so too is this. It's there to protect both sides of the party, because you really want to get people that have the same core beliefs and core values as what you do. You want to get people that diagnose and address the diagnosis as opposed to the symptoms. And you want to get people that are offering you a value exchange instead of just a transactional exchange. As for what Cognitive is doing, we've recently been involved with a couple of music videos. Right now, one of our legacy clients are doing a gang of work on social media. We've just launched another brand called Follicle Funk, which my wife runs, which is fantastic. So that is gaining a little bit of traction and a bit of momentum. So I'm really excited about that. And then, as always, there's always things in the pipe. is always a couple of projects coming down, some big, some small. What I'm really enjoying right now is that kind of in this post-COVID culture, things are slowly but surely returning back to normal. If there's anything like that after COVID, I think normal has been redefined. But what's great is that some of the people that were around before COVID hit are still around. And I'm really grateful for that, because it means that we don't need to reinvent our network and so forth. So for me, the real objective here is, one, and this is a question I ask myself, and I'm sure many people are asking themselves, is what do I actually stand for in a post-COVID society? Is it still relevant? And what's the best way I can serve other people post-COVID? Because fundamentally, the needs have changed. Our impetus has changed. Our focus has changed. Many people have decided, you know what, it's COVID now. It's post-COVID now. I just want to focus on my family, and I'm not engaging in enterprise anymore. Other people are the total inverse. They're like, no, I'm just engaging with enterprise. I'm sick of my family. We've been stuck in the house for several months, so I'm just going to do this thing.
Yeah. Or the economy is opening up now. I need to get this money. I need to be working. I need to be digging. Yeah.
And so it's really about finding that balance. And so for me, I'm always looking for opportunities. I'm always looking for new engagements. That's it. I'm sure by now everyone realizes that I'm quite selective in the engagements that I engage in, and the partnerships that I build. And that's because I want to go home and sleep peacefully at night. I want to know that I'm making a change in the world. It's not just about the money. It's about the people. And so Cognitive is really birthed out of that. It's birthed out of a need and a desire to serve our community, to make sure that everybody is represented in a way that's professional and eloquent, and in a way that they can be proud of. Because fundamentally, everybody wants to be on a big stage. At some point in their life, everybody wanted to be an actor or some kind of modern day superhero. And if I can help facilitate that process, then I think I'm doing okay.
Jarrod, thank you so much. This has been absolutely entertaining and enlightening. I definitely found quite a few things that I want to stick in my Twitter there, that I want to tweet and go post with. But the core things that I'm taking away is definitely your desire to serve, and how, the ability to serve and to solve other people's problems really is an avenue towards creating opportunities for yourself. Jarrod Morkel of Cognitive Design Solution. You can find him on Instagram at cognitive_design. And Follicle Funk, check out Follicle Funk. It's a really fun platform that has just started up. This has been Make Art.